and welcome back to Safety and Survival Tips for My Sisters. I am Master Naeemah Brown, and I'm so excited that you decided to join us either again or for the first time. If it's your first time, make sure you go back and watch episodes 1 through 4. We have so much information, but we are excited for this episode, episode 5, with the legendary, my dad, Grandmaster Dennis Brown, joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. He had to come, he's my dad. But we're so excited because we are building a community for resources, for safety, for survival, and for self-defense. And I already know, but I want the community to know why you are so special and important as an advisor for our community when it comes to everything martial arts and self-defense. So let's start right in. When did you begin training, and where throughout your career have you trained?
My training actually started with a group of local guys that had been watching Kung Fu movies. We go watch Kung Fu movies and come home and practice in Malcolm X Park. And then we go the next week and watch Kung Fu movies and work in the park. My first actual school, however, was with Grandmaster Willie Lynn. He was running a school on Georgia Avenue in the hood, so to speak. Now, there will be folks that say, well, I remember you and that was like 1970 or so. There are people that say, but I remember sparring with you in 1968 at June Ree School. And I told them, yes, I did join June Ree School. I do have a background in Taekwondo and a black belt in Taekwondo. But my first formal instructor was Grandmaster Willie Lynn.
And then I understand that you also went to China for some training. What did you do there?
Well, somewhere around the late 70s when a group came back to America, to the Kennedy Center, to perform. And I remember I went down there to see them, and they had something called Wu-Shu or Kung Fu Wu-Shu. And we decided that that's what we wanted to do. Well, they picked something like 5 people to be invited to go to China. And the 5 of us, we were the first Americans to go into mainland China. There had been a couple of guys, Roger Tong and Anthony Chan, and a few folks that individuals. We were the first team to go, kind of became known as the first African American to ever train in mainland China in the Kung Fu and Wushu.
So, in addition to your training and addition to going to China, you then came here to the US and you owned martial arts schools. You also host now for, is it 33? How many years is it?
I believe it's 38 years now.
So 38 years of a national or international 6A NASCAR rated international tournament. That is an amazing accomplishment. But I understand that before doing that, you were also a competitor in the martial arts circuit. What were you competing in?
So I was competing in forms and weapons. But what they didn't know is that there are people who will tell you, well, you know, Dennis Brown didn't fight at the tournaments. He was only a forms and weapons competitor. Well, that's because I was fighting in the back alley of Chinatown where they did the gambling and all like that. The Chinese never did point fighting of that type. They all did full contact, knockout kind of tournaments. So myself, I was always a full contact type of fighter, or we worked in Sanda and all those different types of things, and the knockout kind of stuff that America took on later on.
Also, now in some very serious times in our society, got asked to come in and teach self-defense. And self-defense to some of the people that we would call the front line of being in dangerous situations. And there was a very special group that actually special and impactful for the United States as a whole that asked you to come in after September 11th. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting story. I've been going back and forth to China for a bit, taking people over to train. And on 9/11, we had scheduled to take a group of students to mainland China to train in Beijing. For some reason, I think now was an intervention from God. I decided that I wanted to leave 2 days early. And so we, American Airline, I think it was, we called and said, well, we got 12, 13 people going to mainland China. Is there any way you can regroup us and get us out a little bit early? And they told us, no, we can't, it's just booked up. There's no empty seats and all like that. But then a few days just before we were supposed to take off, I think we left on the 9th, we had some seats came open. And they said, if you're ready to go, if you packed and you can go right now, you can go. Of course, all of the newspapers hit me at once. How did you know to trade seats in 2 days early? Because you had like a dozen people and you just decided for no reason to just change. And I think, again, I said it was a godsend. So when I got back, I got called and I heard that the airline was trying to find somebody to train the flight attendants on what they could have done to prevent it. And Chuck Norris, I believe, was doing it on the West Coast, and I got picked to do it in D.C.
He's showing a pilot and flight attendants what to do if a terrorist strikes. But first, Dennis Brown teaches them confidence.
Strike. Good, that one rocked me.
The martial arts master working with World Black Belt Incorporated is helping flight crews stay in a defensive state of mind. We agreed not to reveal the airline employees' identities.
It's not meant for you to go one-on-one with a terrorist or any aggressive person, but to just stop them long enough to give everybody else a chance to assist.
Brown's reasons are also personal, connected to the American Airlines plane that slammed into the Pentagon. He and 8 other black belts had reservations on Flight 77, leaving Dulles Airport on September 11th.
This photograph from China shows Brown, his instructors and students training in Tai Chi. The 9/11 attack inspired him to share decades of self-defense knowledge with those serving the flying public.
For me, it's very personal, and again, this is giving back and giving thanks for my life. Strike.
So now we've gotten a lot of background on you, your experience, and why you are an important resource for the community when it comes to self-defense and martial arts. So we want to jump right into specifically what I decided to bring you on the show for today. And we've recently had a number of videos go viral of women being attacked at gas stations, at train stations, and one of the reasons for this show is to help to empower women to get into self-defense and understand that they do have the ability to defend themselves. And one of the arguments that fills the comments whenever we put out information on self-defense for women, there are a lot of people that say, you know, oh, gender or weight or size of an individual, it doesn't matter what skills you know or what martial arts you train in, you're still gonna be, as the comment said, you're still gonna be screwed. Is there truth to that? Is it only gender, weight, and size that makes a difference? Do you have to train in a specialized martial art in order to defend yourself?
Well, there's two things. There's martial arts and being able to physically defend yourself, and then there is surviving the situation. Because there are many situations where folks have fought their heart out and at the end they still end up dying. If your goal is just to be able to say, I fought really hard and I did this and I did that, that's one thing. But the techniques that you use also have to guarantee that you're going to survive the fight. If it's a man or a woman, if the person's twice your size, you still have a less chance of making it if you have not taken martial arts techniques. And you don't need to be a Bruce Lee or expert or anything like that at it. You just have to be aware of a few things that you can do, not to kill him, not to knock him out, but just give you a chance to get out of there safely. So the biggest technique you have, the biggest defense you have is this one, the mind. Change your mindset. I am a warrior. I am a warrior, I'm a female warrior, and I have a certain set of tools, as they say in that movie, that will allow me to survive this if I can just mentally survive it.
So we're actually going to go over 2 viral videos today and get Grandmaster Brown's advice on what we could do as women in those particular situations. I'll give you this trigger warning. Both of the videos that we will be watching and discussing today are very difficult to watch. So be prepared for that. If you don't want to watch it, we'll discuss it a little bit so you can tune out and tune back in. But 2 women were attacked recently, and those videos went viral. One in New York and one in, I believe, Jacksonville. So we're gonna go to those videos right after this, and after each video we're gonna discuss what the best advice Grandmaster Brown has for us for those situations. So let's go ahead and go to the first video.
Seconds. It was punch after punch after punch.
I never thought I would be in like a situation like that, ever. I walked into the gas station, he came in after me and was just like ranting and raving about y'all's kind and y'all need to go back and all this other stuff.
While she was buying gas at the counter, she says the man was making racial remarks and was standing close to her, so she asked for some space.
And he didn't back up. I told him like, you know, like I could just call my dad or whatever. He was telling me like he had his gun in his car. So at that point I felt threatened, and then he put his beers on the counter in front of my stuff and I slid them over, and at that point that's when he started punching me in the face.
Let's take the video frame by frame. She's facing him, his leg at the bottom of the screen. You can see her arm move. Then he swings and punches her in the face.
I was literally shocked. After the first hit, you could see my mouth drop. Like when he first hit me, I was just like, whoa, and then he kept hitting me.
So very unfortunate situation. We just watched a young lady go in and do something that we do every day. Her daily activity. She was going to get gas, and the assailant came in, as we heard, already upset, already angry. It says that the situation may have been racially motivated, but she did something that is very common. Someone was crowding her space that was angry and aggressive. She asked him to move out of her space, and he began wailing, throwing haymakers. What would be the best advice that you could give in that situation?
Well, again, I would say the first thing is always be aware. And whether or not he came at her, whether there was a fight, if you're at a filling station and there's somebody who's not riding next to you in your car and he gets that close to you where he could actually swing on you, as soon as he got within range, your radar should go up and you should start moving that distance away from him. If he was 4 feet away from you and all of a sudden he's 3, then he's 2, and you don't know him, then why didn't you move back to 4? And say, can I help you? Maintain your calm. While you're talking, you should always be assessing the situation and looking at him. And I know it sounds a little crazy, but you're looking at him thinking to yourself, if something happened, what would I be able to do? Am I close enough to do this? And I don't think you have all that time. This all happens at one time. The martial artist looks at him and says his eyes are open, his throat is open, his groin is open. How are you doing? And if he comes at you, you've already assessed the situation. And again, I'm not saying you're sitting there thinking, it's just something that goes through your head. I train on a regular basis, so I have a certain group of techniques that you don't want to see. So I say be prepared. When I say be prepared, always be aware of what's going on. Now, when he came in, clearly he was not a trained fighter. He wasn't a boxer. He wasn't throwing straight punches and jabbing and hooking. He wasn't going to the ground for a takedown. He was just swinging wild, leaving everything wide open. And if he's bigger, don't think about swinging with him. And I think that was a smart thing. Don't start haymaking, because he's got more hay in his maker. What you should be thinking about is, what are the best techniques that I can control? You want to make sure that you're throwing techniques. It's not like in the ring, because forget it. I don't care how great you are in the ring or on the mat and all like that. You're surprised, and you have to think about what to do. Now, the great ones are going to execute automatically, but most people, if it's a young lady, she may not have been taking it but a year, or they've learned a couple of techniques and all like that. I would say you immediately go for a technique that's going to disable him. He's bigger, he's probably stronger. You have to use your strength to go for the weak points. Number one, I would say always stay center mass. Center mass, that is, if you got basic kicks, I mean strong kicks, and you've been working the bag and all like that, not for the ring, but you've just been working on your kicks in the gym, or not even martial arts school, just in the gym, make sure you got a really strong, clean, hard front snap kick to the groin. If you can take him in the groin, I don't care how big he is, if you hit him right, he may not go down, but he's going to bend over. If you can't get him in the groin, follow the center line. Then you go to the solar plexus. A good heel kick to the solar plexus may not knock him out, may not knock him down, may just surprise him that you could kick that high. But for whatever reason, it stalls him long enough for you to now go to the next line up, which is the sternum. Now the sternum has to be a much harder kick, and if you don't have a real strong kick, you're not going to be able to hurt him to the sternum, but you might be able to knock the wind out. If none of that works, if don't say you did each one of them one at a time. I'm just saying pick one and go at it hard. You follow straight up, and I would say go for his Adam's apple. Go for the throat. A good technique that brings the fist, not big fat one like that, because you don't fit under there. We call this a dragon fist, that is narrows the area and try to hit him in the throat. Follow up and to the nose. And see, I'm still on that center. Anywhere in there can go. And I didn't say punch him in the nose. He could bleed all over himself and still take you out. A heel palm. Now I see everybody putting on the bags and doing this, doing that. I say practice a good heel palm. This is nothing but bone here. A good heel palm up under the nose, and if you don't believe it, take your finger and just stick it against the bottom of your nose and push up real hard, and it halfway kills you. Can you imagine driving that up on his nose? Now, if you hit hard enough, it's going to make his eyes water. It may even break something in here. And you can always continue up to the eyes. Continue up the center to the eyes, and we don't want to make sure you're correct. Everything else can be corrected. If you made a mistake and you misunderstood, he was just coming to ask you for your phone number. But if you take his eyes, that's the trouble. So make sure if you go into the eyes, but if it is a situation and it's clear that he's here to hurt you, then take the fingers to the eyes. Again, you don't have to be a Bruce Lee master or anything, but just go to the eyes. Just don't get panicked and start scratching. Scratching won't save your life.
Thank you for that advice. We're gonna go ahead and go to the second video.
Bueno! Punk ass nigga. Mother nigga! Get up! Shut the fuck up!
So that last video unfortunately hits very close to home for me. Many of my viewers know I live in Brooklyn, New York. I take the train all of the time. And I do see situations where people come on the train clearly not mentally stable, and in a situation where you have to fend for yourself because we don't know what was going on in the minds of everyone else that was on the train, the gentleman who was filming or anybody else, why no one stepped in even when the woman said, please somebody help me. So we have to be prepared as women to help and defend ourselves. So in that particular situation, he comes on, he's obviously not in good mental health, he's larger than she is, and she goes to get up to move away from him in that situation. He grabs her hair and pulls her back down to the seat. Now she is restricted to that seat and sitting right beside him. What is the advice that you would give?
When I looked at it, I was just disgusted. Because first of all, first thing I thought is, should you just punch him in the face and try to run or that type thing? Mostly I would say that's not going to work because he's crazy. And you've heard people say crazy people have extra strength. You know, they just get this adrenaline and you can punch them in the face and they're crazy, they'll keep coming. So that was the first thing across my head. Said, well, the guy has to be a little bit insane. I was a little bit disgusted that none of the men or the ladies, because 2 or 3 of them could have taken that little guy. He wasn't that big guy, but people are afraid of crazy people. So you have to let them know, I'm just as crazy as you. And I'm not saying you're gonna get up and start screaming and going crazy like that, but you have to be prepared to deal with crazy. There are techniques, you have to do what you can do. Now, I would say first of all, if you're gonna be riding on the train, and I tell you the same thing, have a weapon. Not a gun, didn't say anybody put a gun in. I didn't say anybody walk around with a knife or this thing and hanging from your pocket. None of that stuff. But you should be prepared in those situations. What could you have done if you had had a weapon? I think that I would tell folks, my mother lived in DC. She didn't ride subways, but she never left the house without a fork in her bag. I'm talking about a fork, not a knife. You can't be walking around with a knife because maybe you'll get arrested. But I would tell you to always have a knife, you might get hungry. I'd have a really good, strong ink pen in my bag. You should always have access to your fork or your
ink pen
or whatever technique you have worked on at home. Now, when he sat down and grabbed her hair, I think I would have already had my hand on one of those 2 things. I think that if I was living there, I would tell my family that when you get on the plane, you get on the subway, already have your bag halfway open and have your tool. I wouldn't say a screwdriver because they might say, well, what are you doing with a screwdriver? But it's not a knife. It is not technically a weapon. But I would have that tool where I could grab it easily. And when I saw somebody sitting down beside me, rather than get up, I would have put my hand in my bag and then I would start getting up. Now, I would think the first thing I would tell you that if he grabbed your hair, he's already assaulted you.
Correct.
So now you have the right to
defend yourself.
So I would say that when you start getting up, I would make sure that I understood the situation. I wouldn't just say, help me. I would start yelling, help, help, help. Not being polite, because again, that sends a message to him. This is a very polite person. She ain't prepared to go crazy. Because there are sisters out there that would have looked at that little rascal and said, get your hands off of me. And I guarantee you, it would have startled him a little more than her just going, help, because that sends out a message that I'm helpless. But she assumed that there were some real men, real women in there that would do it. She was wrong. So she tried to be polite. Help me. I think I would have been the sister that would have got up and said, get your hands off of me. And I'd be thinking to myself, don't let me have to come out my bag. And after you yelled the second time or something and it was aware that he was willing to hurt you, I think that I would have come out with my ink pen in hand, which I practiced in the gym, blocking and stabbing and stabbing. I would say take him in the shoulder, the hand that he has grabbing you, just some kind of way to break the hold. Don't have a little pen like this, the plastic one. Have the metal pen with the point on it, the blade. I said I would start going there. Number 2, I would be yelling, help, 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 help. I would never stop yelling, because maybe they didn't respond to just help. Then they're looking, well, she's okay. But if she's yelling, help, help, over and over as she's doing her fork thing, she's sticking the fork in him, she's forking him, she's just sticking the fork in his neck as often as she can, in his shoulder. If you don't want to go to the neck, and again, go to the eyes, go anywhere you're going to go. But the 2 things happen here. I've yelled help 5 or 6 times. Everybody is looking. The first thing you say, just help me, help me. 2 or 3 people can say, I didn't hear. I was looking the other way, I was looking at this. I would be screaming to the top of my voice, help, help. And on the third help, I would start using my tool.
Your tool.
My tool. Now, a screwdriver might be hard to defend, but what's the saying? I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Or
That's good.
I'd rather be I'll argue about it in court.
Yes.
And if you don't want to go, the first one might have been to his shoulder, let me go. The second one would have gone up further to his chest, from the solar plexus to his chest. The third one would definitely go up to the thing. I'd be going for your throat, your eyes, because I've practiced this.
Yes.
So be prepared.
Okay.
And have the right mindset, but you have to have trained, had some training to maintain that. You don't have to have training to do this technique. I can just tell you about it, you carry it. But you have to be trained by an instructor who puts you in the right mindset because you practice it.
Yes.
You practice in your workouts, you practice in the park, you practice in the school, but you have prepared yourself to be able to do that.
All right. You heard it again, ladies. Just so many amazing tips and so many takeaways and so many gems from these situations. We recognize that fear can stop anyone in their tracks. So what I'm hearing is the reason for the practicing, the reason for the taking up self-defense and making it a part of your daily routine is so that fear doesn't stop you in your tracks. I completely understand the terror of the woman that we just saw. The terror may have been why she was even whispering, because when you're under such grips of fear, you have no idea how you're going to respond. But when you start practicing self-defense, you get involved in workshops, you get involved in training, it helps you to be able to execute some of these gems that Grandmaster Brown just gave us. So I hope that these tips were helpful today, but don't go anywhere just yet. Because we have the privilege of having Grandmaster Brown here with all of his experience, not only in various areas of martial arts, but also in specifically teaching self-defense to those that do not practice martial arts on a regular basis, we are going to head to Brown Shaolin Wu-Shu Center, and we are going to get into some practical techniques that Grandmaster Brown is going to teach us. So move your furniture out of the way, make some room, and follow along with us. All right, ladies, I hope that you made room in your living room or in your bedroom, wherever you are. Make sure you stand to your feet, and welcome to Brown Shaolin Wu-Shu Center. Grandmaster Brown is going to be going over techniques with us, hands-on techniques today that will help us to get out of situations as ladies that we commonly encounter. So we are going to look at 2 techniques with Grandmaster Brown and look at techniques that are not based on your weight or your size or your gender, but simply exploiting things like pressure points, joints, tendons, things of that nature. So Grandmaster Brown, what is the first technique that you're going to show us?
This first technique is from a system called China, which manipulates joints and ligaments to cause pain and cause someone to release. In this case, so if you were, say you were someplace and you weren't ready to go, and I just said, no, let's go, and they grabbed you, your natural thing would be to try to pull back. But what I'm saying instead, make them keep their hand on you, grab tight, and instead step towards them and bring this up. And you see you bring this right across that joint. Now you can close the hand a little bit just so it doesn't slide away, and not try to push down here. You don't have enough power. Squeeze, squeeze, and then apply pressure on that joint, not the arm, that point. When I clap, push straight down, right there. One more time. Push, don't turn it, just push straight down, right there. And make sure that you start pushing when they say, because it may not seem like it's a lot of power, but you may, if you do it exactly right, they may not even see it. Just apply pressure right there, straight down, right there. That's called chin-eye. That's going straight up grab.
All right. So ladies, I hope that you heard that. If you're standing somewhere, they grab you, we want you to secure their grip, which is going to be surprising to them, I would say, right? And then as they go to pull you away, you're going to step in with them. The arm will bend. Make sure you bend their arm. Hand goes up, grips down, and you press straight down. Make sure everything is tight to you and squeeze, and you're pressing straight down on that joint to drop that person. All right, so let's try it out with my dad.
I already feel it in my wrist.
So be like whoever your practice partner is at home, spouses, I'm rooting for you. Don't get your wrist broken. Don't try to apply too much pressure. But we're gonna show it again one more time. Here we go.
Okay, let's go.
Step in, number one, grab down, bend the elbow, and press straight down on the joint until they go down. All right, so that is technique number one. You're not going to try to pull away or counteract the aggression, and that's why it doesn't matter what size you are, whether the person is 6 foot and you're 5 foot, it doesn't matter. It's about exploiting the joint and tackling the pressure point. Is that right?
That's right, and it's a combination of speed and power. So if you did it like this, he's got great big arms, they're looking at you. But when he's pulling with you and you give in, he relaxes, and that's when you snap down. Yeah.
So again, it doesn't apply or require that much pressure. So be careful when you're practicing it at home. But in a time where you are being grabbed or trying to be snatched away, that's when you apply all the pressure. If the wrist snaps, that is on them, and you get out of there. All right, so let's move on to technique number two. Let's switch sides so they'll be able to see this one. So ladies, we're gonna go off of the video that we analyzed originally, the first video of the young lady who unfortunately was attacked inside the gas station by the guy, the assailant that was larger than her, and he was also throwing haymakers. So walk us through what an option in that situation looks like.
Well, what I would do first, if we were standing here, and he started throwing his haymakers, and you step back with the foot, but form a cocoon around you. Don't try to block and block as you may miss. Just form a cocoon around as he steps. He starts coming that block, and set you up for a front snap kick. Bring that foot down, and as you do, cock that leg, that hand, and drive the heel straight up into the nose. See it?
So it looks like step one, if we're standing facing one another, maybe you're surprised and you turn around as the young lady did, he's throwing. First step is stepping back with that foot to give you that fighting stance that we discussed in a previous episode and making a cocoon. Why do we not block right here?
Because if he's real strong, that can knock your fist into him.
Got it. All right. So step number one, make the cocoon away from you. Step number two, then we're going for that vulnerable spot where we're kicking in the groin. So that's number two. Step one and step two, haymakers are coming, cocoon and kick. Then we're stepping down, step three, and cocking the hand back into that heel palm that we learned. But we're gonna turn and press the heel palm up, and I want you to push, as Grandmaster Brown says, up through the nose, correct? So that we keep going all the way up. And what is the reason that after we do that front snap kick and plant our foot, why do we turn our hip and turn our head away as we push up?
To get more power, number one, because just pushing like this doesn't have the power. It's just this, but it gets your hip, it gets everything into it.
When you turn.
And now it's a straight line, you see? So instead of just standing here and going up, it's easier to miss than if we turn.
Got it.
And make sure you get right under the nose.
Got it. Okay. And so if you do miss, is there a significance for your head being faced in the opposite direction or for you?
Also, if I drive this here, it drives my vulnerable part away from you.
Away from
Right,
this
I don't want
area.
you coming
Got
across
it.
like this.
And now your face
And
is
now
open.
this stuff is open. Yeah.
Got it. So Ladies, I hope that you saw that. That's 3 easy steps. We're making a cocoon and a step back. We're snapping a kick, planting that foot, and then turning that heel palm up to the sky. So at the least, we're protecting ourselves, and we've got 2 opportunities to knock that person back. And at the end of that, again, when it comes to self-defense, the goal is to make it home to your loved one safely. That doesn't mean now that he's not back, now it's our time to go in like the movies. No, the next step
Get out of there.
is to get out of there, right? All right, thank you so much, Grandmaster Brown, for taking us through those 2 techniques today. Ladies, practice them at home. As I always say, they're not going to become your default if you don't practice them. Fear will take over and you won't know what to do, and that is dangerous. So, as I always say as we end this show, it doesn't matter what amount of techniques we show you, what amount of training you put in, there is a level of danger out there. So stay safe, survive, and stay prayed up. I'll see you next time.